Hello, Free Rotation Nation. I am Bibby the Hare. I am joined by Chris.
Hello.
Our legal advisor, Beckles.
I think we need to delete everything that's happened in the last 20 minutes.
Oh, fuck, we've been recording. Whatever. And our head honcho, you could say our Führer, Angela.
Jesus.
Wow, good. That was very good. I'm very proud.
Are you golf clapping?
I am golf clapping.
Wow. Hello.
I don't, if it's sincere or not, I fucking take it.
I do have ulcers.
Okay.
Hey, Becky,
Like Hitler
turn that
did.
on a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
It's one of the ways they tracked him.
Okay, well, speaking of ulcers, what are we talking about today?
Jesus Christ.
I know, seriously.
Nazis in South America.
I like it. The Nazis in South America. Now, guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but back in about 1940 to 1945, there was this small war that happened.
A bit of a skirmish.
It was a skirmish. It was very, very well kept down. It was pretty contained within the Europe.
Schoolyard fight.
Yeah. We called it World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And, back then it was, if you hadn't heard about him, there was this guy named Adolf Hitler. And he led a group called does anybody know?
Great mustache, by the way.
Yeah, he had a pretty good mustache. The Nazis. So, today we are actually not talking about that because if you don't know what happened in World War II,
Read a book.
you could pretty much put it in the Google and everything that ever happened will come up. But what I did not know is that apparently Nazis escaped to South America after
Brazil and Chile.
in
Argentina.
Argentina.
Yep.
Ay.
And Honduras and all of South America.
Yeah.
So, today we're going to kind of give you the aftermath of what happened. I mean, we have covered it previously with MK Ultra and some of the other Nazis that did come over here during the Cold War to assist us in making weapons against Russia. But apparently there was at least 5,000 Nazis that ended up traveling into South America through basically their own underground railroad in order to escape persecution.
And the Jewish investigative team believes it's upwards of 16,000.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Oh, wow.
They think it was a minimum of 15,000.
That explains all the white South Americans.
I didn't, not thinking about it now, you never really expected it because there is a huge European, descent of people in South America.
We have a friend, B, who is from Argentina, and he is definitely not Hispanic.
Yeah. It is strange.
Right.
So you don't really think of it until you look at the context of it.
He
So,
looks more Italian.
yeah.
Oh, and yeah.
Weird. How'd the Nazis get to South America?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
He's a Manchurian candidate. We gotta find out what his trigger word is.
He's definitely MK Ultra for sure.
he is definitely not.
Nicest guy you've ever met.
Yes.
MK Ultra for sure.
I'll guarantee.
but anybody want to throw down some facts about what happened after World War II and that kind of led to this?
So, after the fall of Berlin, once they had bombed Hitler in his Spidey hole, and the Russian Spetsnaz, I guess, had taken his body, supposedly.
And we'll get into that.
A lot of the Nazi higher-ups went into hiding, and we're talking 20, 30,000 Nazis that went into hiding. Well, a few different things happened. Thing number one was Operation Paperclip, where the U.S. government went over and got a bunch of their top Nazi scientists and brought them back to work at NASA and in the CIA. And basically, we took the smartest ones we could grab and brought them over here. The Russians did the same exact thing. They took as many as they could get and brought them to Russia to work on their missile programs and their mind control programs. And basically, they just didn't want us to have them. And then there was a huge scramble for whoever was left between Israel and Egypt. And
It was like trading Pokemon cards.
yes, everybody was trying to grab the highest up, smartest Nazis they could find. And it became difficult because a lot of them fled to South America. You would think it would be hard for what were essentially war criminals, to flee a whole continent and get somewhere else in the world. But a lot of them were given false visas via the Catholic Church, different friars, and oddly enough, the American Red Cross, which is really confusing. They would put them up in churches, hide them, get them false visas, false passports, ship them to Italy, ship them on boats from Italy to, a lot of times they hit Argentina was their port of entry, and then they just spread all over South America, which is confusing as hell.
So it was interesting looking at sort of the architecture. I was kind of Googling around looking at it, and some of the cities, you can definitely see that there is German influence in their architecture of the cities that people were living in.
There are specific, what they call Bavarian villages in South America where there is no South American influence. It's all German, European architecture, and they only speak German. Colonia Dignidad is one of them. Via Barbaria is another one. And literally, if you speak Spanish, they will not understand you. They speak German, and only German. And they don't let, for lack of a better word, brown people into the towns.
Yeah.
They just don't. If you're not a white European, they don't let you in. So it's basically little Nazi Germany in the mountains of South America, which is really confusing.
And I know that some of you were probably listening thinking, well, they recovered Hitler's body, blah, blah, blah. But they did not. Hitler's body was Hitler and Eva Braun were supposedly burned the day before the Russians got there. So shortly after that, maybe a couple of months, there was a reporter in Los Angeles who was contacted by someone who said, hey, I'm from Argentina, and I helped move Hitler and his contingent off of 2 submarines into a fortress under an estate in San Antonio in Argentina. I've got all the details. If you act now, you can go get them before they go in hiding and you can't reach him.
Yep. And it's not even, and it's crazy because they weren't even really hiding.
No,
They just did whatever the hell they felt like.
I think Hitler shaved his mustache, he said. Hitler shaved his mustache, and that was pretty much it.
I mean, to be fair, mustache was pretty much the
Yeah.
icon of Hitler.
It is, but it's also the most, basically at this point, Time's Person of the Year. It is the most known human being on the planet.
Yeah.
I don't think shaving your mustache is a good disguise.
I was reading through this document. They have hundreds of letters where people was like, hey, I just saw Hitler having breakfast in this restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, this is legit Hitler.
Well, so after they bombed him, the Russians took his body. And they kept it for a bunch of years and wouldn't let anybody look at it. Well, back in I think it was the mid to late 90s, they let people do DNA testing on the bodies, on the skull. And it's definitely a woman's skull, and it's not Hitler. And they're pretty sure it's not Eva Braun. They contacted some of her family, but her family's not interested in being brought to light at all. They just don't want to be a part of
Can't blame them.
Yeah, it's fair.
I understand.
Yeah.
Hitler's remaining family that are still alive have all agreed to not have children so that the lineage dies out.
Kind of makes a lot of sense at the same time. I mean, really, if you think about the context in which Hitler sort of rose to power, I don't know if it was a nature versus nurture thing. I definitely think there was a much more of a nurture issue where he was put into that circumstance, and what he saw and what was happening in Germany after World War I really shaped who he was. But I can kind of understand that as a family lineage to Hitler, the last thing you want to do is have somebody say, look, we have a little Hitler growing up.
This is
Baby Hitler.
This is James Hitler over here.
Yeah.
Should have let that fucker into art school.
Yeah, exactly.
Dumbasses.
Right, because we've done a podcast before where we went and looked at Hitler's early life and what prompted it, the failed artist that people talk about, and how he was constantly rejected as just being mediocre.
Yeah. If someone could tape a goddamn banana to a wall and make a bunch of money off that, let the stupid fucker in
Well, it's not only
exactly.
that. I think a lot of it did have to do with how much the Treaty of Versailles destroyed the German economy. And I'm not saying Hitler was... Someone else would have done what he did.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they would have done it to the extent, but he did what a lot of despots do. They rise up when the country's down, they find a scapegoat, and they attack them. And they mobilize.
Well, and the thing is, you have to remember, prior to once the Treaty of Versailles is signed, and then after and before the Great Depression, Hitler had already tried to overthrow the government, but it didn't go through. It wasn't until the Great Depression hits that Germany is basically completely wiped out of any economic standing that they have. And at that point, when you're that desperate to rise back into power, be a successful country, anybody who is saying anything at that point and sounds legit, you probably are going to follow what they say.
Because let's look at who the Nazi Party recruited. Young people, your idealists, and laborers. Like, we can get you a better wage.
Well,
which is important to remember for where we're going.
And it's also, their depression wasn't necessarily the same as ours.
Right.
Their depression had a lot to do with when the Treaty of Versailles split up Germany. basically it basically quartered all of their natural resources and gave them to other countries as payback for World War One. So not only were they bombed into oblivion, they also lost their ability to extract profits from the ground.
Right.
So there was no money to be made anywhere.
Well, and it's easy for you to turn and there's always somebody that
To
can
be
be
blamed.
That's the
Absolutely.
problem. And Hitler had decided that he was going to blame Jews. And that the entire issue that had caused what was happening to them were all based on the Jews and all of that. So when you are that desperate to find an answer and to find blame to somebody, you're going to believe it. So,
Well, he also had an occult reason for blaming the Jews.
yeah.
So, I mean, he went down this occult path, and it also influenced his thinking, which is important to remember that because one of the reasons he went to Argentina and the Catholic Church financed him was he was starting a new religion.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we don't know much about it, but we do know that it was almost a cult life.
Yeah. So their praying position is just them goose stepping, right?
Exactly. Well, I was going to say, what I find interesting is a lot of people would probably think that why would the Catholic Church or the Vatican be involved in this? And I do believe that some people were either complicit or just unknowing about what was happening. However, you have to remember, the people that were being targeted by Hitler were Jewish people. You would think that, and Catholics, I hate to say this, there is a tendency to be very discriminatory against other races or other religions.
Yeah, literally anything.
Yeah. So,
Well, this FBI document has a different take on it.
Oh, sure.
So this is what sent me down the rabbit hole I was telling you guys about. So, do you know who's in power in Argentina at this time? Juan and Eva Perón.
right.
So Juan and Eva Perón are the right movement, and they are completely against the left movement, which in Argentina were liberals, but they were also socialists and communists.
Yeah.
And anti-religion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the proposal was made, and Juan Perón was a huge proponent. Well, he was a supporter of Hitler.
Yeah.
His biggest backers were Nazis. So I think this is why they went there, and why you saw a sudden shift in Perón's politics, where he suddenly, told the businessman, hey, you have to give a 25% increase and a Christmas bonus of a month's salary. You remember this? It started his rise to presidency. And it's interesting that his politics turned and he became more of a religious person, more about the people, more of a Nazi party. Because the Nazi party itself wasn't anti-Jew. It was pro-people. And it's just interesting.
My point was that a lot what I was going with is right now what a lot of people are trying to do, and this was probably a couple of years ago. Pope Pius XII was the pope that was over the Vatican at the time in which the Nazis were being removed or helped out get out of Germany, and they're trying to examine his documents because of a lot of the documents that have recently come out regarding exactly how did this happen. So there were. Initially, a lot of people thought that the Catholic Church was complicit in it, but there were several higher ups that were involved, which they did have the ideologies of a lot of what Hitler believed, and they were willing to help with that. And there's a lot of there's a lot of belief that maybe the documentation that exists from that time will explain exactly what happened. And this was a couple of years ago, so I don't really know if anything's come of it. But I mean, those documents are so old that I think they said there was thousands of documents they have to go through.
Well, and I'm sure it was to counter, like I said, the anti-religion left liberal party movement of socialism.
So, and I look at it a little bit differently. The Hitler and specifically his higher ups were really, really searching for a lot of historic religious artifacts, and they were hoarding them.
Yeah.
And I think he forced the church to help him. I think he had stuff they wanted, and they wouldn't give it back unless.
That makes sense, too.
Because they were really big into getting, and it sounds Indiana Jonesy, but like the Spear of Destiny and...
Which we know Hitler had found a component of it.
Yeah.
We know he found it.
They were looking for they were talking about going to get the Shroud of Turin. They really wanted all of these religious artifacts because he thought they held power, and if the Catholic Church believes they should have them, they'll do whatever they have to do to get them back. So, and I think that may have been a component of it that I think is going to come out.
Religion over politics.
Well, history.
Yeah.
They have our historic. If we let him die, we will never retrieve them.
Right.
That's true. That's a really good point. And we do know, what was it, in 80 one or three, they found that bank vault in Argentina full of these artifacts
Yeah.
and money.
Yeah. Well,
So-
and there was a lot of speculation as well. Look at the people who were going through what they called the escape routes were rat lines.
Yeah.
And the people who were higher ups, like Josef
Mengele.
yeah, the guy who actually who did all of those experimentations on during the Holocaust, the guy who created the actual gas chamber. These people escaped. These were the higher ups that ended up escaping from any sort of or prosecution or anything like that. So they ended up in Argentina, and some of them ended up just dying out.
Mengele died in
Yeah.
the 70s. He had a stroke while he was swimming. They buried him under a fake name in Chile, I believe. And finally they exterred his body and did some DNA tests, and we're like, yeah, this is Josef Mengele, the
And
angel of death.
They've traced him back to I want to say in the mid to late 40s, there was someone who was experimenting with diabetic medications and giving people and animals diabetes to see if they could cure it.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well,
And then they traced it. Here he is.
Well, if you want to keep that knowledge in existence, that's how you ensure it. You get the people who created any of that or were close with Hitler.
Well-
you get them out of a circumstance in which they most likely will be executed or used against later, as we see with Russia and the United States
Well,
using their knowledge
My
to
point
create
is
these things.
we know he continued experimentations.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you look at and it's weird because you look at Mengele, who is one of the most, under Hitler, he's probably top 4 Nazis all time, in the hierarchy, in the ranking. He was one of Hitler's really good friends. It's not Goering or Goebbels but he's really, really, really a super bad dude. When he went to South America, he basically started working for, I think the name was Kurt Mengele and Sons, his father's farm equipment company. He wasn't even hiding it. He literally worked under his own family name in South America, and no one touched him. So I don't that's the part that I'm like, because there were Nazi hunters out there that were trying to bring these people to trial. They were trying to get them to go to Nuremberg and stand trial for their crimes, but I don't understand how they didn't find him. He's working under his father's company.
Didn't the Jewish Nazi hunters, they did find him and they just couldn't get assistance getting him out?
They found him
we know
a
they
couple
assassinated
separate
a lot of
times.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that was the thing, is they would find him and say, hey, we're going to go get him, and then the funding would get pulled.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Or even some of the documentation for some of these higher ups is, for example, Chile, the statute of limitations had run out. Or the paperwork didn't look correct.
So here's the thing. There's no
Or
statute of
show us
limitations
DNA
on
that
war
these
crimes.
are who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing, is that's a worldwide policy.
Right.
There are no statutes of
Exactly.
limitations
So
for war crimes.
It's just countries who are complicit in what's happening, using what they can to block any sort of further action.
And the reason they're complicit is because, keep in mind, it is Juan Perón, and he is the
Using
guy.
him.
He is the guy.
Well,
Yeah.
but you think if America knew, if the United States knew where Mengele was, and Chile said, we're not giving him up, we're going to go get him.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a scenario where they're like, cool, too goddamn bad. We're coming.
Yeah.
I just don't, and I try to wrap my brain around this, how do we let them live until the 79? I think Mengele drowned in 79. 34 years after World War II, he's swimming on a beach with his wife and dies. That's not how that dude was supposed to die. He was supposed to be strung up and hung for everyone to see and leave his carcass out there for 2
I
weeks.
sort
Put
of-
him in Pig Alley.
Yes.
And,
I don't understand it.
I don't think, and this may be naive of me, but I also think that part of it is by the end of it, and by the time that they probably really did have any interest in it, time had passed. They were going into the Cold War. They were dealing with other stuff. They were probably like, really, at the end, inevitably, it really didn't affect the United States. It was much more of a European issue. So,
Sort of, but I mean, you look at things that we were doing during the Cold War. I mean, you look at Rocky and those kind of things. If there wouldn't have been a better reason to bring America together in defiance of communism and socialism than grabbing the angel of death and dragging his worthless ass out of hiding
Yeah.
to string him up for everybody to see. That brings the country together really well, really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, and I say just, a few years ago, got a Nazi out of California that was hiding out there. He was in his 90s.
Yeah.
They're still technically criminals, and they're still hunting them.
yeah.
But there's no way they were hunting the higher-ups, because they would have been found, because they weren't actually hiding. They just went to another continent.
They're wagging their thumbs and their fucking fingers at us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come get me,
these
fuckers.
documents document Hitler, like, pretty much his day-to-day life is literally
Yeah,
documented.
they knew where they were at. That's the part that I don't understand, and I can't figure out who's protecting them and why.
Mm-hmm.
I get that we took the scientists. Mengele was technically a doctor.
Yeah.
He was a nightmare of a human being. But you just can't let him run rampant in South America.
Right.
But they did.
Yeah, and there's documents where he continued his experiments.
Yeah.
Like,
Colonia Dignidad,
crazy.
they took Colonia Dignidad is in, I think it's in Chile. It's a German. It's considered a Bavarian village.
Yeah.
What it was a German concentration camp in South America where they had Paul Schaefer, who was another Nazi doctor, basically torturing dignitaries from other countries in South America for information, and they were funded and backed up by the government.
So what I also found interesting,
It's
what I also found interesting is that I don't think South America and all that, the idea of having an Aryan colony didn't exist. It had existed way before the idea of Germany getting these Nazis out of Germany. I was doing some research, and it turns out Nietzsche's sister, they wanted to establish an Aryan colony in South America in the 1880s.
Sure.
So it's not so surprising to see that there is already historically some sort of context and basis for all of this. So maybe with that, there's information that they just,
like when
we
Hitler
didn't know
was
about.
first coming into power, people in South America reached out to him to sponsor him, and he remembered that, and he kept those contacts. And this was like, he was like, why do they even know about me?
So not only that, but you have to think, like, they didn't ship 10,000 Nazis to South America and just put them in huts.
No.
They had this. I really think this was planned out. This was a planned, basically, disembarkment.
Right.
For, I think, and it may have been their plan for when they did win the war, when they did take over the world. These would have been like outposts. Like
Well,
German outposts
you're
all
already
over.
looking like 60 years previously. You already have people trying to come into South America to create these Aryan colonies as it is. So it's not unfounded to believe that they did have some sort of plan. And, the government in those countries already kind of knew where they would go with it once this did happen.
Well, the government informant told them that, so some time had passed, and he was like, you guys still haven't come pick him up, and now he's in an underground bunker. And he even told them how it worked, that there were lights that you would shine a certain way, and it would trigger a wall to open, and it would immediately close, so you'd have to be quick. And he said it's heavily guarded. And then the people who didn't know this would say, I saw Hitler, and he's extremely pale. Like, his hand is white.
So he's not going outside in the sunlight.
Right. And we also know that Hitler was a night owl. He would stay up all night working. He'd go to bed around 5 or 6 a.m. and be up at noon. So it would suit him to not be outside, because he never really was. He was like a vampire. And they also tracked him because he was known to have asthma and ulcers. Not known at the time in the Nazi party, but like the government knew it. And then we had a doctor come forward. It's like, I think I'm treating Hitler for ulcers and asthma. And there's a whole documentation where it details the doctor's notes and compares it to some documents they took from his safe when they took over Berlin. His ulcers and his gallbladder issues. So it's crazy. I mean, we knew exactly where he was for a long time.
So, and I
how to
wonder
get there.
if they still. I mean, if he's not dead, he's 130 years old by now. If they know where he's buried, and they're just keeping it basically quiet because.
Well, that's the narrative of the last 80 years has been that during this bombing that he commits suicide and that there's nothing to find of him. He's gone. That's it.
Yeah, but that's a really nice story, except for when the Russians say they have him and they don't.
Yeah.
And then
And
there's
then it comes
sightings
out,
of him
oh,
in
he
South
was
America.
burned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and that's the part that gets me is 90% of the higher up Nazis make it to South America if they don't come to work for us. Hitler doesn't make it out. He's the one that they don't let get away. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense. If you're going to let Schaefer and Mengele and, I mean, even Werner von Braun come here, you're not going to grab Hitler?
Yeah.
Like,
the context of it, I mean, we could literally do probably an entire episode about the theories of what happened with Hitler other than just this and all of that. But, I mean, it does tie up a narrative of the spooky boogeyman is gone. I mean, the idea that he's in existence or he's escaped and any of that creates a narrative of terror that exists. So if you're just trying to shore it up and be like, look, we won the war, we're done, this is it, the best thing to say is he died. That's it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's it.
And if he ever shows his face
villain's
again.
dead.
Right.
Except for none of them were.
Yeah.
They were all somewhere else. And that's...
And it's funny because you don't really hear about the after of the whole World War II with the Nazis and what happens to them until you get a little, as you get older and you actually look at yourself. It is strange to see that really a lot of these people ended up surviving. A lot of these people sure did go to trial. Some of them did. But then they were kind of redirected to these other places either through escape or they went to work with other governments in order to further any further war actions that were going on.
There was a doctor, I think his name was Dr. Bowen, maybe? He was basically the Nazi director of biological warfare. Mm-hmm. His son is currently a doctor, but he's still alive, but he's like, he believes in like homeopathy. He believes in the curative power of like flowers and nature and stuff. So he doesn't do anything remotely to what his dad does. He's kind of off the grid and does his own thing.
The power of friendship.
I mean, yeah, he's gone the complete opposite of what his father was. But we apparently took this doctor and he started working for us. Somebody saw him from the Nuremberg trials, saw him on our side and was like, hey, that's Dr. So-and-so. Arrest him. And then we smuggled him to Argentina so that he wouldn't go to be hung. And it's just like, what the fuck, guys? Like, what are you doing? I don't know. I just don't understand it. I don't understand what the purpose is of keeping Mengele alive. Mm-hmm. We know who he is. We know where he was. He was working under his father's fucking company in South America. That's how he was collecting a paycheck. And that's the other thing is, like, you look at these villages in South America, Colonia Dignidad, Villa Barbaria. They're gorgeous. Mm-hmm. They're like these amazing alpine villages in the middle of fucking nowhere. But they were paid for with Jewish gold. Rings and teeth pulled out of people, melted down, and then used to build these things. Mm-hmm. It's not fucking cool.
Yeah.
And there was never any justice. These people never stood trial.
No.
And that's what, it just irritates the shit out of me. Like, there's a whole... Tim Kennedy did a documentary on this called Hunting Hitler. Tim Kennedy is in the army. He's a Green Beret. He's also an MMA fighter. Mm. But he's also he's a super down-to-earth dude. And they went down there, him and his crew, because very white. His whole crew is very white. So and it's an interesting documentary to watch, or series to watch, because he goes to like Colonia Dignidad. And he goes in these people's homes that live there. And these are all descendants of Nazis.
Yeah.
And they pull out, like, their grandfather's medals. And they're showing him, like, this is his medal for valor. And it's the Iron Cross. And you're like, what the fuck? And they're all, like, white gloving it. And you're not allowed to touch it. And they're speaking German, not knowing that their translator speaks German. Because they assume he only speaks Spanish and English. And they're talking about how stupid they are. It's just really weird to watch these people that still hold very true to Nazi beliefs. That are allowed to just hang out.
Yeah.
They're just chilling in South America, like, wearing, like, lederhosen in these Bavarian villages. And you're like, fuck every bit of this. Let's carpet bomb it.
And that's why when we talk about in the U.S. about these Nazi influences and people like that party died, no, it didn't. It is very much alive. And it's thriving. And
the part that irks me is these people they have money. They have infinite money. And you're like, that's all from, you pulled those out of... You pulled the golden teeth out of dead Jews' mouths and melted it down. Fuck your whole family.
Or when one of these lost Louvre paintings pops up, you're like, they fucking sold it back for more money.
Yeah, it wasn't lost.
We know exactly where they came from.
Stolen.
It was stolen.
Like, what do you mean lost?
And we know that they just sold it back to you.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah. So
it wasn't misplaced.
No.
The fucking Nazis took it when they stormed Paris.
Yeah.
Give it the fuck back. Mm-hmm. It just irks me to no end that these motherfuckers did not get what was coming to them.
Just fly down and beat him up. Come on, let's do it.
I'll punch an 85-year-old man in the face, or 130.
Yeah.
Like, however old.
Well, the thing is, like, most of those people, they're not alive anymore. I mean, the one we caught a few years ago, he was in his 90s.
Yeah.
Good. Glass kneecaps.
Yeah. Well, they shipped him back to. I think the story with him was they shipped him to Nuremberg to be tried. But even then, like, What are you gonna
Well,
do?
he's lived out his life.
Yeah, that's
It's
the thing.
like, oh
There
great,
is-
I'm
Had
90
an
years
entire
old.
life.
Yeah, I'm 90 years old. I don't really care if I die because I'm going to die in 6 months. Meanwhile, the people I ended up killing were children, women, young people, all because they were identified as Jews.
Yeah.
And they didn't fit the iconic Aryan idea that these people, you stole these people's lives.
Killed
where
Jewish people, black
Right.
people, homosexual people.
like
the mentally handicapped.
Yeah.
Anybody that wasn't white and healthy.
yeah.
That was kind of, if you had anything wrong with you, good luck.
You're gone.
And that's the thing. It's like, I don't understand. There is no reckoning. And there's not enough people aren't irate about it. Like, no one gives a shit that Mengele died in 79. Like, I just don't understand. Like,
Fuck
this guy.
We talk about
Yeah.
short-term memory all the time. Like even like say somebody like cancel culture, for example. I'll use that. You have cancel culture where you cancel somebody. Well, they do something to rehabilitate themselves, even if it's the most awful thing you could come up with, barring murder and pedophilia.
Chris Brown is still making albums.
Exactly.
Right.
That's my
Like,
point.
what the fuck?
Short-term memory. It's like, okay, at the time we were having World War II, this was the most god-awful party. This is the epitome of evil that we're looking at. 30 years later, most people aren't even thinking about that anymore. What we're looking at in America is Charles Manson. We're looking at the end of Americana. We're looking at the Cold War. We're looking at other wars like Vietnam and Korea. We've already shifted our
It doesn't
ideas and
impact
narratives
us,
at that
so
point.
we're done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
so,
and here's the way I look at it. Those villages still exist.
Right.
Their lineages are still stupid rich because of the horrors and atrocities they committed. Fucking stop.
Yeah.
It's time to end it.
Sins of the fathers should be visited because they're still continuing it.
Well, they're profiting from it.
yeah.
That's the part. If you, Dr. whatever his name is, son, who's decided to go like homeopathy, that dude's gone a whole different direction. Cool. He doesn't want to be anything like his dad. I get it. Like, that makes sense to me. These people still living in these basically Nazi villages that are super okay with it, that don't let brown people in, like, maybe fuck all of y'all.
well, you got to look at the history of the countries they're in at this point. So you may say that, we may say that, but the context we live in is very much a different. Even though it's such a divisive time we've lived in for the last 4 years, you know, we are a very diverse country.
We are, however, there is no diversity within these villages. They're not even
That's
letting
my point.
Well, they're not letting the locals in. Like,
Right.
the only locals they let into like Colonia Dignidad were children that they could torture.
Right.
And it's like, fuck you.
Well, and that falls on that country and those people for letting that happen.
Yes.
But they can't, because here's the thing, like, there was never any admission that Juan Perón operated with the Nazis.
Yeah, of course not.
Right.
And it's still Perón politics. Like, his party is still the political
Party
party
power.
in charge.
Yeah.
So if they move against these people, they're essentially admitting that they were built on Nazi party.
Yeah. No, I totally
can't
agree
do
with
it.
that.
Like,
It's just, it's
They
unfortunate.
can't, but we should.
Yeah.
we should, yeah.
Well, then you're making an argument that, and I mean, it all comes down to politics at the end of the day. Are we going to go to war over it?
So, and here's how I look at it. What the fuck is Chile gonna do?
Throw some hot dogs at
They
us.
couldn't stand up to, they couldn't stand up to Nazis 20,000 miles away. We fly 2 F-18 Hornets or whatever over and just start carpet bombing these villages. Cool. Sorry. We gave you your chance. You did not do it. You did not remedy the situation. You let horror reign within your walls.
Is Chile an allied power? I'm trying to think. I don't think he is.
No.
No, I don't think they are.
Yeah. Fuck them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of what, if they're allies with somebody we're allies with. Your ally is your ally is your ally.
No. It's funny that they're South America, but Central America, it pretty much stopped Central America up.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so here's the
it's-
thing: even if they were allies and they allowed this, Saddam was gassing his people, and we just said he had weapons of mass destruction to go in there and just
Right.
wreck them.
Yeah.
There's no way that kind of evil should be allowed to thrive, and not only allowed to, but paid to
Yeah.
and directed to.
Well, and but
Syria was practicing genocide. Hillary shipped them guns and said, try and defend yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that backfired horrifically, but the essential reason she did it
was the right reason.
Right.
well, yeah. I guess contextually, my thing is, at the end of the day, nobody in the United States cares. That's really what it falls into. I mean, there are people who care. Like, clearly you care.
But we should. That's
We
the
should,
thing.
and I agree with that. I think we should, and I think that if you want to stand up and say, hey, this isn't right, but let's also remember where we've been in the last 4 years. The
I
Proud
know.
Boys are okay. They're good people, man.
So it's not just that. So and it's hard to. I draw the line at equating actual Nazis with like the Proud Boys or Antifa or what the fuck ever groups you want to say here. They are very different organizations. We have nothing. Even the Aryan Brotherhood here is nothing like what actual Nazis are.
Oh yeah, no, and I totally agree with that.
It's a whole different thing.
Right.
I have the hope in my heart that Antifa, the Proud Boys, all those people can finally find a fucking middle ground and chill out. I have no humanity in my heart for actual factual Nazis.
Yeah.
Fuck them. The end. Like, there is no... What they have done and what they allowed to happen or agreed to or were willing to be a part of, fuck them all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just unfortunate because, like I said, most people just don't care. It happened 80 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
these people left, nothing happened.
I mean, so Colonia Dignidad was still up and running into the 90s.
Right.
That we know about. I mean, that's just what we know about.
Right.
During the Bill Clinton years, they were still torturing South American kids to see, I wonder what the tensile strength of his bones is and how long it takes him to heal.
Exactly.
Fuck them all. Mm-hmm. That's not okay.
Well, and I kind of wonder at the same time, like, we talk about that, like, well, we need to go do this, but then we also talk about MK Ultra, in which we think that the United States is complicit in experimentation of these people and seeing what they do.
Absolutely.
Well, it really bothers me that when you have who's the Nicaraguan guy, the Escobar, Pablo Escobar.
No, that was the Colombian drug lord.
Yeah. He was a fun guy.
Well, the reason that these drug lords came into power was to protect people from these types of things. And they financed it with drugs that the U.S. willingly bought. The government
the
bought.
CIA.
So it's like the reason these drug lords came into power, they weren't horrible to their people. They protected them, and they protected them from
if
just
you look
such
at
things.
how Pablo Escobar was looked at among Colombians and South
he's
Americans.
revered.
Yeah, he was a fucking Robin Hood.
They still do.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
Still do. There are people who still say that they have never felt less safe since Pablo Escobar is gone.
Yeah.
They still cry. I mean,
He wouldn't let anything happen down there.
Exactly. His whole thing was he was protecting his people. That was exactly
protecting
it.
him from people like
the Nazis.
Yeah, the
who were
Nazis.
in South America torturing people.
And instead of listening to him, let's not listen. We're just concerned that you
have cocaine.
Yeah.
Well,
we finance, but
and a bunch of hippos.
We're gonna get you.
But remember,
Yeah,
Nancy
right?
Reagan and her war on drugs. We had to take him down.
Side note: the MORE Act passed the Senate yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna pass through.
The House.
Yeah, it's not gonna pass through the House because it's a Republican-held House.
I think it might.
I think it depends on.
You mean it passed the House?
Yeah, it passed the House.
not the Senate.
Yeah. I was about to say I think it actually passed the House because the House is held mostly Democratic, and the Senate right now it's in a deadlock. Now, if Georgia goes majority Democrat, it will pass. But if it gets in a lock, it most likely will pass. But if it goes to Loeffler and
that's just me.
Purdue,
I was just thinking about that. Like, they're liable to decriminalize marijuana in the next year,
well, listen,
which is
hey,
bananas crazy.
Yeah, well, we're looking at it like they're talking about federally decriminalizing it, which I totally agree with. You know, we have Colorado that's decriminalized like possessive use of meth and cocaine. Oregon. Yeah,
you want crack? You can have crack.
You can have crack.
Like, what?
You have personal use of crack and meth? Go for it. I just picture the Dave Chappelle, like, got any more of that.
Got any more?
Well, I look at it, especially with this kind of stuff, because I don't partake.
Got any ketamine?
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't smoke weed. And I
Right.
don't do meth or whatever. But I don't think any person should be able to tell you what you put into the meat around your bones.
Yeah.
That's just my rule.
Right.
Like, if I want to inject myself with bleach, okay.
Well,
I think I'm stupid, but
You know, in my job capacity, we've talked about this before. The ideological war on crime or war on drugs has way past it. It's past its prime. And people are much more into the idea that personal use of drugs, even hard drugs, should be federally regulated. You can make money, you can profit, because you're gonna lose the idea of these like cartel drug lords who are making their money. That's where they'll lose it because it'll be regulated. And then you'll also be able to more so treat people for their abuse, rather treat the substance abuse rather than just punish them for it, because that's been a hotly contested thing for years now, especially under our previous governor. He was much more about justice reform than justice punishment. So that whole narrative has shifted so much. So I personally, at this point, I think to profit as a country and to profit as a state, I think we have to look at those ideas. Because look at like Colorado and California. They make a huge ton of money off of it.
Not only that, but as a societal change.
Yeah.
You're not locking up people for having marijuana.
Well,
like a
yeah.
plant. Like, what the fuck?
Well, mass and that
you murdered somebody in cold blood and you had an
Third strike for
Right.
weed, bro.
Yeah.
Sorry about your luck.
Well, and that's the unfortunate thing is mass incarceration. You're incarcerating these people who have substance abuse problems with people who have done horrific things.
Yeah, actual criminals.
And when you overpopulate a prison, and I you know, a lot of people don't think about this. When you overpopulate a prison, that's where the parole board comes in, and this is where you see these violent offenders who get back out
Because they have to.
because they have to,
They
because
don't have
they've
anywhere
been
to
on
put
good
'em.
behavior. Because you can't keep putting people in jail. So I mean, it's a whole thing, and so
And to make this go a full rotation, you know what Nazis love? Cocaine.
it is the white powdery stuff.
Oh. Good correlation.
Chris,
I just
it
love
works. You just gotta think like a fucking idiot like me, and it
And-
all comes together.
Wait, and the purer the cocaine, the whiter it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to be sniffing some beige cocaine. Look at Chris.
I know, Chris.
That's called crack when it's not pure.
Also looks like just powdered bleach if it's too bright. It's like, oh, that's no. You don't want that. You'll fucking
Not
die.
that anybody knows any of these things.
Clearly not me.
I can personally say
at
I've
all.
seen it because I work in that environment where you do see drugs. Let me tell you, the worst thing that I ever smelled was a big ass bag of marijuana.
I've got to tell y'all the story real quick. So Becky calls me and she's giggly. I hear a shit ton of giggling behind her, and I know she's got a big case against like.
It was
a
a
cartel.
marijuana with intent to distribute. Yeah.
And it was like 50-something pounds of it, and Becky's like, it's all in the courtroom. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell.
No, my God, it smelled awful.
They had the biggest contact highs.
It was like everybody started laughing, and I'm like, it's because we're all fucking high from this like pure ass marijuana sitting in our office.
It's evidence. They had to have it
Yeah,
there to
we were
show
about to
it.
go into trial. The guy ended up pleading, but
No kidding. You had 50 pounds of pot.
he didn't have it. It was like 20.
Oh, that.
It wasn't. If it was 50 pounds, it'd have been a trafficking amount. He would had to have gone to trial, but. It was this huge ass bag of pot, and I've never really been around drugs. But as they come in, you can just smell it through the office. We're all just standing there like, what's that? It was just very funny.
But Becky's like, yeah, I'm about to go into.
But I will say, I understand now when the police, when they say they smell the odor of marijuana. Oh, they really can smell that odor of marijuana.
Especially now, since pot has gotten like, it's basically like designer weed now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all like, there's no like low grade mid. It's all just like super weed. And you
Yeah.
can smell
Yeah.
it from a mile away. You're like, that dude's smoking a lot of pot. And I can smell it when I go to, because I go to a lot of people's houses for work. So like certain counties around here have it decriminalized.
Yeah.
And you could just pull up in their driveway. You're like, man, they are burning it the fuck
Yeah.
down
Well, I'm
in there.
about to say,
When I
like,
used to take the dog out in the morning, somebody every morning smokes a big fat one, and I'm just like, yes.
Nice lake and bake,
well, I
bro.
was about to say, like, and it's funny because, like, we live in, like, one of the counties I work in, one city has decriminalized it. It's a fine now. But meanwhile, if you drive through any of the other parts of the city,
they arrest you.
You gonna get arrested. So it's like, just at this point, it's like you have to uniform it because
You know what?
it's
like
such a
Becky's
headache.
nightmare is the legal.
You want to make a
Yeah.
really good social media post?
What if they get caught they live
What
in
if
the
your
city, but they
toe
get...
is like halfway?
Yeah, they get caught a quarter mile outside the city, but they live
Oh
in
my
the city. You're
God.
like,
Yeah.
what?
No, a really good post for that would be like you're like 2 feet from like the border and you just smoke a joint. Where it's
Yeah,
just
you're like,
decriminalized.
hey, just find me, bitches.
Yeah, fuck
but
you.
it is a legal nightmare. I'll tell you, I can't really just.
We should
talk
totally
about,
do an episode about the war on drugs and its failure. It'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love.
Because also fuck Ronald Reagan and Nancy.
Sorry.
I don't like what he did with the whole AIDS thing, so I got problems.
No, I understand.
I mean, good actor. But
I'm sure your dad was a huge Reagan fan
Spaghetti
too.
westerns,
Like, you could
man.
not
Spaghetti
say
westerns.
A word against
he was
Reagan.
a good actor, but not a great president. I mean, he's better than
in
Carter.
hindsight's always 20/20 when it comes to things like, yeah,
Did you
could
say
you?
he's Harry Potter?
No, I said. I mean, no. I said he was better than Carter.
Oh,
but,
I got you.
yeah. Carter was a fucking idiot.
No.
Carter was too progressive for the time he was living in.
Carter,
I think he also was-
arguably is one of our best presidents.
I don't think he accomplished enough to be a best president. I think he was
He
put
tried.
between a rock and a hard place.
I think
with
so.
the
That's
whole
what I'm saying. He was-
Iran-Contra thing, and
if
it was
he
just
had
a bad spot.
If he had if it was 30 years later, he would have been probably in the right position for his ideals. But he was 30 years too early.
I mean, he's a wholesome dude.
You know who our best president was? Millard Fillmore. You know why?
He didn't
'Cause
shit.
You didn't hear dick about him.
I know.
Fair.
Super chill. No one cares.
I like Teddy Roosevelt too. When I read history, I'm like, good old Teddy.
He killed a lot of Indians.
We're going to ignore that.
He killed a bunch of them.
I'm American. I look at what I like.
I'm a Thomas Jefferson kind of guy.
I'm a John
Federalist.
Adams kind of guy. Let's go all the way back to the OG.
You know
George Washington was a real
Actually,
straight
George
dude.
Washington was... he
No,
was a
John Quincy Adams had the best fucking chin strap I've ever seen on a president.
I'll take Andrew Jackson, thank you.
Andrew
He
Jackson.
killed a lot of Native Americans.
Not only a lot of Native Americans, he got into like 37 duels, and he said his only regret when he died was that he didn't kill his vice president.
That's vicious.
He had a parrot. Funny story, just as a side note, Andrew Jackson had a pet parrot that at his funeral had to be removed because it wouldn't stop cursing at everybody. There was a point in Andrew Jackson's presidency when an assassin showed up to shoot him, walked up to him, pulled a pistol, promptly it misfired, pulled another pistol, it also misfired. Jackson beat the man with his cane, and then Jackson's aides pulled President Jackson off of his would-be assassin. So the Secret Service saved the assassin from the president. Andrew Jackson was a badass.
Here's the thing. The problem
That's
with
pretty
Jackson, though, is after the end of the Civil War, the reason why we ended up with a lot of our John Crow laws was the way he handled the South.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
No, I get it. The carpetbagging. The way we're still stuck in, what
The
we...
60s
Yeah.
mentality
Yeah.
of all of that. Like, I'm fairly certain if Lincoln had been alive, it would have probably been handled a little differently. However, Andrew Jackson...
Because Lincoln wanted forgiveness and a unity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew Jackson was like, fuck y'all.
Yeah.
One more short Andrew Jackson story. He was on a boat, and everybody thought he was crazy as shit when he was the captain. So they all told him they were going to mutiny. And he dared them to. He said, if you mutiny, I will kill every one of you. They did not mutiny.
I wonder how the Civil War would have gone.
Badass.
Because he's crazy.
Yes!
I would be curious to see how Andrew Jackson would have handled the Civil War.
Ugh,
Like, and
I
they'd be
don't
like,
imagine
all y'all
he would.
motherfuckers are going to die.
Him and Sherman would have been good friends because they were just about getting the job done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ABC. You get the job done. It's got to be horrible, but you get there.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah. Do you know who also gets the job done? Becky. Tell them where they can find our links.
Oh, my God. Bobby had some good segues
Doing
today.
a job.
Yeah, with cocaine.
I
and
know.
the-
No, earlier too with what was it in the beginning? I had a good one too.
You
Yeah.
suck.
you did,
The-
you
oh,
did.
oh, no, that was me with the bad ulcer joke. I don't remember. Hey, go back and listen to the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, I also made a hot dog joke when we were talking about Chile. Really, it was funny.
It was good.
Yeah.
Bobby.
I made myself laugh.
You're pretty. Just remember that.
Thank God, because I need money.
Bobby is very smart, too.
Hey, who else needs money? We do. You can check us out at Facebook at The Free Rotation Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter at The Free Rotation. We're also on YouTube and Twitch at The Free Rotation, where we stream every once in a while if you want to check us out. We also are affiliates of Weeby Geeks. Check us out over at WeebyGeeksPC.com. And we are also have our own website. You can check us out at TheFreeRotation.com. And you can check out everything else we do.
Oh, I have one new thing. Also check out Pornhub.com/TheFreeRotation for goodies.
I would love... Okay, first off, that is not an affiliate of The Free Rotation Podcast. I'm going to put that right
Also,
now.
I really hope this isn't accurate.
Oh, me and Chris started it yesterday.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
it's just feet
I am
play,
not
that's all it
affiliate.
is.
I am not an affiliate.
It's just
of
feather
this.
and foot. It's just feather and foot play. Not when we're fucking.
While you play Magic together.
No, while we jack off. Like we're not fucking, but we're jacking
Becky.
off.
Jesus. Took it to a nerd
It's
level.
Pornhub.
Chris is not associated with this at all, regardless of what Bobby says.
Oh, you were passed out. I dragged your corpse.
Chris has the mask on. Which, funny story, one time I was watching a video and I didn't know it was my sister because they were
Oh,
wearing a
no.
mask. And it was my sister. Oh, no. And I was like, that's really
Fuck.
hot. And then the mask comes off and I was like, never again. I bleached my eyes.
That's
You can check-
It was pretty
I probably
bad.
wouldn't
You know where
record
you
that.
can actually
Fair.
check us out at, guys? Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. Well, Google Play doesn't exist anymore. YouTube Music, I guess, is what it's called. Apple Podcasts. Check us out over there. Don't check us out on Pornhub. I don't know what's going to pop up over there if you put The Free Rotation. Probably some sort of penis swinging.
You
or
Dick
something
spin.
like that.
me right round, baby, light
And
round
now we're
like
getting
a record player.
DMCA'd.
Oh fuck! God damn it! Sorry.
Damn it, Bobby.
Sorry. You said I'm very smart, Angie. Anyway.
I said you were pretty.
Have a love.
And also, don't cry for us, Argentina.
You've been waiting. I knew you were waiting for it.
The truth is, the Nazis never left you.
Oh, shit.
But have a lovely rest of your day whenever you're listening to this. And remember, bye. Christmas is here. It's Capitalism, baby.
I thought you were like, bye, 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 bye.
Oh, no.
And we're DMCA'd again.
Also, we love you unless you live in South America and are a Nazi.
Yeah.
Together. You have to be those things
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
You can be South American and be super chill.
Yeah.
But if you're a Nazi, I hate
Now,
you.
what happens if you're South American and fucking a Nazi?
I also hate you.
Fair.
You're
Yeah.
complicit.
Yeah.
Cool story, bro.
I thought you said his penis. I'm like, did he whip it out? But of course I was going to look because,
It's
curiosity.
So I told Casey. She asked me, she's like, hey, do you want to see every pair of tits ever? I'm like, yeah. She's like, what about my mom's? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see them, but I'll look.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
I'll
think
look.
you
I'm
understand.
gonna look.
Titties are titties.
I can't not look. I'm going to be terrified at myself, but I'm looking.
But I'm looking. It's like you have to.
Yeah, I don't. I told her, I'm like, it's this thing in my brain that says titties
Yeah.
that way. And I'm going to look that way, and then I'll be like, God damn it, I wish I didn't look.
Anyway.
Why doesn't somebody introduce the episode now?